Hello, welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the video series where I'm providing a high-level overview of the Site Planning and Design Handbook. This video is about Chapter 10, and that is Vegetation in the Site Plan. Planting plants are shaped by the underlying form of the site plan, but plants are not just window dressing. Plants contribute a great deal to the quality of our experience and to the character of the place. The choice and arrangement of plants can be used to frame views, to accent or to hide features, to direct pedestrian traffic, to create outdoor spaces, invite, repel, provide comfort, to encourage motion or pause, and to modify scale or other environmental elements. Planting may be formal or informal, simple or sophisticated, according to the objectives of the site. Effective planting design is a synthesis of texture, color, line, form, and balance. Edges or lines can be defined in the landscape using plants, paving, recurrent patterns, or grading. Landscape form refers to the mass and shape of the planting taken as a whole. Texture refers to the appearance of the form as gradations ranging from coarse to fine. These elements are used in combination to evoke a certain response or to provide a desired character to the project site. Designers employ repeating patterns, use light and shadow, symmetry and asymmetry, and use various materials in conjunction with plants to achieve the desired effect. Planting plants using a symmetrical, balanced form with a central axis are referred to as formal designs. They are highly organized, speak to stability and structure, perhaps even authority. Formal designs were preferred in the past, and many older styles of landscape design are fairly formal. The planted median brings an element of informality. Um, and also, this is part of a neighborhood. And also, please refer to the images here. You can see the street trees reinforce, but also soften the formality of the straight boulevard. And also, you can see the reflecting pool and Washington Monument. And those are the formal elements of a civil landscape that speak of stability and authority. Also, a few more images showing the formal space between condominiums and also formal boulevards as well. So, for most current applications, less formal asymmetrical forms are more common. The asymmetrical design appears more natural and less austere. Lines in the asymmetrical planting plan are still used to define space and provide way-finding information to pedestrians. Asymmetrical informal planting tend to have softer edges and provide less definition. Plantings are particularly good at directing attention and activity and are used in conjunction with other materials to identify a transition from one area to the next. Also, there are a few more images here, and one of them shows the brick approach to a courthouse, and that provides a formal, highly organized public space, clearly associated with the authority of the court. So this is how plans can define the purpose of the building. Let's talk about native plants. So the value of native species of plants and the damage that can be caused by exotics has brought a new awareness to landscape design and an increased interest in working with plants native to the area. Using native plants contributes to some degree of biodiversity, reduces or eliminates the need for pesticides and fertilizers, and reduces maintenance costs. It can also increase or improve habitat. Again, a few images. showing plans on an arbor and other views. So please back up my videos with the images with the textbook because that is important to see and no words can actually describe that. So please refer to all the graphics sections and other images in the textbook. So exotic and invasive species. Let's talk about that. Awareness of native plants and the undesirable impacts of non-native or exotic plant species have increased dramatically over the last 10 years. Thousands of exotic species are present in the landscape today, but attention is usually focused on the invasive species that if left unchecked, displace native species. Different exotic species thrive in different regions, and native plants continue to be displaced and even driven to extinction. Not all introduced plants are by definition undesirable or harmful. So, for example, apple trees are hardly a threat to native forests and have become part of our culture. When selecting plants for the landscape, designers should evaluate the impact of their choice and also uh, 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 and they should evaluate how it's going to interact with the environment. Plants that spread and establish easily by self-seeding or spreading roots should be reconsidered. Ground covers that establish and spread quickly should not be used where they may escape into adjacent open space. And also, ground covers should be confined by paved areas. And we're moving to the next subsection of chapter 10, that is using trees in the landscape. So when we landscape for energy efficiency, it can be improved by as much as 30% by properly selecting and locating plants. Plants contribute to cooling by shading buildings and cooling surfaces, but also by the evaporative cooling associated with transpiration and the latent heat of evaporation. Properly located plants may reduce reflected light from the building surfaces and windows, and sunscreens are most effective when located on the western and southwestern sides of buildings to reduce heat from the summer setting sun. Smaller trees may be planted closer but dense near buildings, and they may reduce desirable summer breezes. Buildings can also be cooled using arbors. And here um, um, also you can see some vines in some buildings. And vines reduce summer heat by absorbing much of the light. And deciduous vines lose their leaves in the fall, allowing winter heat gain. Planted wind screens can also reduce the cooling of buildings in winter by redirecting or blocking winter winds. Evergreen trees located on the north and west side of buildings will screen winter wind. An inevitable mixture of land uses result from development. Areas of transition from residential to commercial or industrial often require careful planning to offset the impact of conflicting uses. Using trees and other plantings to screen or buffer the buildings is an important consideration in the site design, and that became a common practice. So here you can see a table showing applications for planted screens, and also you can see another diagram showing windscreen design detail. So please always refer back to the textbook. Also, what is important here is providing a visual screen is probably the most common purpose for buffers along the residential areas. Blocking an unwanted view is usually accomplished by planting a simple row or rows of shrubs and trees. Care must be taken so plantings do not simply serve to frame the unwanted view, but rather than hide it. In addition to screening the unwanted view, the well-designed buffer can be used to reduce other intrusive influences such as highway noise or dust from adjacent commercial or industrial sites. So, tree masses have several significant impacts on their immediate environment. The shade will lower temperatures, reduce evaporation from the area affected, and the combination of these effects is a localized reduction in the relative humidity. Plants with compact, tight growth patterns tend to be better screening plants. These plants create a dense, soft collection of surfaces, leaves, that absorb sound and provide for deposition and filtering of dust. A basic element of the design of buffers is the location of the buffer with regard to the source of the nuisance and the point of observation. Locating the screen is a site-specific consideration, but buffers are usually more effective if located closer to the source of the dust or noise. If in case of energy concerns such as windbreaks or shade, the buffer should be located closer to the structure. Sound attenuates over distance, so a sound buffer is more effective when placed closer to the sound source. This is also true of dust or airborne particulates. The dimensions of the screen are also important. Width may be constrained by property limits, but ideally screens are not limited to single properties and extend as deep as required to be effective. A few more images showing planting as part of a sound screen strategy. So in choosing plants, the design should specify plants that will mature relatively quickly and that will not become a maintenance problem. Plant material chosen must be able to tolerate the nature of the nuisance or sound, and the buffer must be designed with the impact of the season in mind. Distance can be used to some advantage by the designer to determine a blend of conifers and deciduous trees to provide sun warming in winter and shade in the summer. The plan might also include planting successive plant types. A combination of plants for a site might include fast-growing plants that would ultimately be removed and replaced by slower growing but more desirable species over time. The presence of mature trees on site is generally considered to be desirable. In residential projects, people often pay a premium for a site with trees, especially mature trees. Designers may enhance the value or desirability of lots by saving existing trees. Another chart showing screening design considerations, and those are locate the buffer close to a source of noise or dust. The depth of the buffer mass should be relative to the strength or magnitude of the nuisance. Combinations of plants are more effective than single type of plants. Grading can be used to enhance the effectiveness and visual interest of the buffer. And in previous videos, we spoke about berms, so please refer to those. Also, height of screen is as important as width or depth, and buffer should be visually pleasing. So those are some of the considerations. We are moving to the next subsection of our chapter, that's tree and shrub planting. The primary difference in the methods is the amount of soil space available to the tree. So there are, as you know, there are four different methods of planting, and those are street, lawn, residential, and pit. So just kind of like reviewing the previous material. So a great deal is known about the way trees grow and the requirements of growth. Most roots of trees are very small, ranging in size from a pencil thickness to a hair. These are the feeder roots that absorb and transmit nutrients and moisture to the plant. These roots grow up toward the surface to form mats in the first few inches of soil and grow and die back as a reflection of continuous near the surface. Um, Root growth occurs in moist seasons and dieback occurs in the hot, dry summer and in cold winter months. Whether existing or new, the fundamental need of healthy trees is adequate room to grow. When choosing a location for new trees, consider their size 5, 10, or 25 years from now. And where trees already exist, consider whether the location of proposed improvements may restrict growth or whether the growth of the tree may become a nuisance or cause damage. Landscape plants grow and change over time, and these living site elements should prompt some consideration of the impact of the plant over time in a given location. So, urban trees, the average lifespan of city trees is less than 10 years. Some lessons can be learned from the causes of these tree losses. The single most common cause of the city tree mortality is drainage. Tree pits along city streets or in some compacted urban soils are simply pots that have no drainage. Water collected in these pits does not drain away and the tree drowns. Tree pits designed for city environments or environments with poor drainage should include a way to drain excess water from the pit. You can see a diagram showing urban tree pit detail. And concerns that may influence your selection include exposure to pollution in urban environments. Even within the city or community, environmental quality can be very different, so tree selection must vary as well. Here you can see trees that tolerate city conditions, and some of them are hedge maple, Norway maple, um, also Washington hawthorn, Russian olive, Modesto ash, ginkgo, thornless honey locust, golden rain tree, red oak, and little leaf linden, and some other trees. Structural soil can contribute to the health and longevity of urban trees. Structural soil is compacted to a degree that provides an effective subbase for paving, but the soil still allows for the penetration and growth of roots. Also, there is another reason for tree losses, and that's from mechanical damage from wire baskets, wire from staking, tree grates, or tree wrap. All of these devices are intended to support or protect the tree at some point in its move from the nursery to its ultimate location. And if installed improperly or left in place for too long, these devices can become the cause of tree death. All wire or wrapping around the root ball should be cut away to allow the roots to grow beyond the root ball without restriction. Even biodegradable material such as burlap may remain in the soil years after the plant is installed. Also, tree staking is a practice left over from the time when most planting was of bare root plants, and its usefulness today is debated. Also, tree wrap is used to protect the tree from animals and vandals. Tree grates are common in urban environments and are used to protect the tree from the damage of pedestrian traffic. The rings are designed to be cut back as the tree grows, providing room for the trunk. However, in today's cities with shrinking maintenance budget, this is usually not done and the tree can die. Um, Creating continuous tree pits or troughs that extend the length of the street can increase the life expectancy of the trees and reduce the cost of replacing dead trees. Each tree root zone is connected to the others, and the pavement over tree pit should be of pavers. Using pavers over these tree pits is a viable method, both from a plant vitality standpoint and a long-term feasibility standpoint. Let's move to the next little subsection, and that is selecting and planting new trees. It may be appropriate to remove the existing trees and replace them with new trees sometimes. And selecting a tree begins with selecting a site for the tree. Trees for lawns will be selected for different reasons than trees for a city street, and the purpose and desirable attributes of the tree species need to be evaluated. Another image showing pavers over a root zone rather than just the asphalt. That's what we discussed. And also you can see the section showing the paver detail. Also, there is a table showing trees and shrubs that are tolerant of road salt. And you will be surprised that actually there are a few of them, but also the chart shows intolerant and some tolerance. So that's quite interesting to see if you're dealing with landscaping quite a lot. So trees should be chosen with an understanding of the cultural requirements of the tree and the intended impact or value to the site. Um, and there are always lists of recommended trees depending on the area, and you should definitely consult a competent person that will advise you, such as a local arborist or nursery staff, or a landscape architect that will help you with the selection. Next subsection, preservation of trees. So, experience has taught builders that home buyers will pay premium for a well-landscaped property, and a lot with trees is viewed as more valuable and will bring a higher price on the market. And mature trees are viewed as the most desirable aspect of the residential landscape. Mature trees are often destroyed or damaged in the course of construction, and efforts to save a poor quality tree may cost more than the value of the tree. A careful evaluation of the site before construction begins um, is the first step to avoiding either of these mistakes. In many areas of the country, restrictions on tree removal are very tight, so please check with your local authority having jurisdiction before you remove any trees. Also, another little table showing common trees and tolerance to fill. So trees are damaged from cuts and fills because the balance of air and water between the roots and the soil is disturbed. In some cases, the disturbances weaken the structural base of the tree as well. Tree roots grow and develop partially as a function of the air and water available in a given soil. The soil is a dynamic ecosystem in which a complex relationship between microorganisms, organic matter, soil structure, and chemistry takes place. Field soil texture is at best minimal because of the mechanical action of disturbances. Also, soils with a fine texture or particle size, such as clays, have a greater impact as fills because their fine particle size fills available pore space through which air and water would travel to the tree roots. Trees in fill. Planting and constructing tree wells can save existing trees, but these trees should be chosen for their value and contribution to the landscape, to justify the cost and effort of the tree well. Old or damaged trees may not be able to offer the longevity necessary to justify the additional expense, and a young tree could be planted at less expense. The site should be prepared before the grades are raised, and all vegetation should be removed from the area affected and the soil worked. Fertilizer and soil additives should be added in accordance with specifications provided by manufacturers, nursery personnel, or a landscape architect. Once the drain tiles are in place, the well is constructed. And the drain tile should be installed with a positive slope away from the tree. The drain tile should extend to or just beyond the drip line of the tree. And the choice of material for the well can be varied. For shallow wells of 1 to 3 feet, bricks or stone can be used. These should be laid up in an open joint without mortar. And this is sometimes referred to as a dry joint. Also, a batter of at least 3 inch per foot should be provided. In deeper wells, it may be necessary to construct the well with greater structural stability. A means of drainage at the drip line is often provided. This may be a series of drain tiles on and existing and extending into a gravel or stone bed, or an actual gravel or stone channel provided to direct water to the root zone. So also what is important to understand here in this section is that the layer of rocks or stone must be of material that will not react with the trees or soil chemistry in such a manner as to harm or inhibit the plant. The layers of rocks are covered with a finer filter stone to a maximum depth of 12 inches or to within a foot of the ultimate grade. A layer of straw or filter fabric is installed on top of the filter stone, and this prevents the soil fines from washing into the spaces between between the stones and rocks. So also, let's talk a little bit about trees in cut. It's more difficult to protect a tree from a change in grade that involves removing soil from its base. If soil is to be removed, it's probable that some root damage will occur, including removal of some roots in the process. The roots most likely will be damaged or removed, and the smaller roots on which the tree relies for feeding will be damaged as well. Site management during construction is required to ensure that the decision and efforts to save a tree are successful. So care taken during the construction process can minimize the risk of damage by subcontractors or careless heavy-duty machinery operators. Um, Another section here showing tree in fill detail, and you can see the tree well and how that is designed. And also there is another section showing tree in cut detail. Trees and carbon management is another little subchapter here. And we know that concerns grow over the consequences of global warming. So, and planting trees may emerge among the strategies used to offset the continuing increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. As trees grow, they fix carbon dioxide in their biomass. And if carbon management emerges as a strategy in the US and as it has in other countries, tree planting may represent a source of income in the form of pollution credits. Um, let's talk a little bit about phytoremediation. That is when we use plants to clean up site contamination, and it has become more common as a brownfield remediation strategy. Phytoremediation is an umbrella term that includes several different approaches to cleanup. And it's popular primarily because it is relatively inexpensive and can be both attractive and effective. The principal disadvantages lies in the time it may take to be effective. So there is no immediate effect because trees take time to grow. Um, Phytoextraction, sometimes referred to as phytoaccumulation, is a type of remediation that relies on plants' natural capacity to absorb and incorporate specific materials into their tissues. Some plants are efficient collectors of metals such as lead, mercury, or nickel, and these plants are periodically harvested and either incinerated or recycled. Photodegradation relies on the metabolism of plants to decompose certain contaminants once they are absorbed. Some plants produce various enzymes and acids that cause the decomposition of contaminants. Other plants are able to absorb organic materials and volatilize the material into the atmosphere through the process of respiration. Other applications involve transgenic plants, which have been designed for the application at hand. And this technology may be beyond the typical site development project's budget and schedule, but the products of this research have already begun to appear in the marketplace. So that's something that you may need in one of your projects. Bioremediation, that's another subsection, and that is the use of microflora and fauna to decompose or stabilize contaminants. Like phytoremediation, living organisms are used to remediate a site. Significant strides have been made in the bioremediation field, and the most effective approach has been to identify organisms that exist on the contaminated site that are already at work on the contamination. Some of these organisms are collected and brought into the lab to determine the ideal combination of factors such as moisture, air, light, and nutrients to facilitate the most ideal environment. And these conditions are then recreated in the field, and this bioremediation may take 6 months or more, depending on the site conditions and the necessary effect. Another chart showing the plants with known phytoremediation capabilities, and you can see the plant name, application, contaminant that they can neutralize, and then the medium. And for the most part, it's soil or groundwater. Also, there is a table showing plant materials for brownfield sites. So there are different types of grass and other plants that can be used for the brownfield remediation. So also there are forbs and legumes, and also there are trees and shrubs that can be used in the site design, and they will help with the brownfield remediation. So let's move to the next subsection, that's meadows. Natural meadows are preferable to lawns for their function and for their low life cycle costs. Meadows are usually mowed only once in the fall, and they provide important habitat and forage. The meadow functions as an important element of local water quality and it is attractive. Nonetheless, sites using natural landscapes have been singled out and criticized by some for their wild look. Some communities have taken action to limit or even restrict native meadows. To avoid an unpleasant response, some education of local officials and neighbors may be required when incorporating a meadow in a landscape design. The popularity of native plants has resulted in an increase in growers and distributors of plant materials suitable for meadows. Adequate stock is usually available, and many nurseries offer meadow mixes. It is prudent to understand the seed mixture before specifying or using it as meadows, and there are complex plant communities. Seed mixtures should be evaluated for a number and type of specific species. The mixture should provide a combination of annual, biennial, and perennial plants, including native grasses. If continuous blooming is desired, the species should be addressed for bloom time. Native warm season grasses make up half to three-quarters of the plants in natural meadow, and these are clump-type grasses as opposed to the familiar cool season turf grasses. Warm season grasses tend to grow in the late fall and early spring and do not compete directly with summer germination and seeding of wildflowers. Also, there is an image showing a rooftop meadow as part of the green roof design. And also there is a section showing a green roof cross section. So that's a detail that you may need when you design a green roof. The first few years of the meadow are most intensive and costly. Weeds and exotics must be removed by hand during this period and until the meadow can establish itself. For the perennials and grasses, the first years are spent growing extensive root system. And there is another image showing a rooftop landscape with different types of plants and shrubs. Meadows site preparation varies. Seed and meadow plants into small prepared areas within an existing landscape will allow the small site to be established and naturally expand over time. An alternative to hand weeding is to water the area for a week or two before an application of Roundup, then repeat the process to collect any resident by newly germinated weeds. After the second round, apply the meadow seeds. So that's the general recommendations, but it vary depending on the site. And we're moving to the final little subsection of chapter 10, and that is toxic plants. So the trend towards specialized landscapes has increased in recent years, along with our appreciation for the natural beauty of landscapes. Specialized landscapes include therapeutic gardens, living labs, or scent gardens, gardens designed for the elderly, and many others, for example, for schools and other businesses as well. Many of the plants commonly used in landscape planting pose some risk from toxicity. There are several poisonous plant databases on the internet, and you can find them. And they have particular concern for pets, like cats or dogs, and also horses. So there is a table that provides a list of common poisonous plants. So if you are designing the site that the animals are going to have exposure to, please make sure that you coordinate the plants. And that was it for chapter 10. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in chapter 11.